Hey, MMT followers, Christina Fugis with MoldMaking Technology for a quick MMT chat. My guest today is James Juergens, the operations manager for Ernie Green Industries out of Rochester, New York. And he is also one of MoldMaking Technology's newer editorial advisory board members. So hello, James.
Hi, how are you doing this morning?
Good. So not only are we fellow Jeepsters with my Army Green 2008 Jeep Wrangler, we
Mine's a red Rubicon.
there we go. That's even better.
Yeah,
We also met through a common relationship at an awesome dinner at NPE 2018 with Cavalier Tool. And what a great mold builder.
yeah.
Do you still work with them today?
We still work with them today. They're one of our key suppliers. We still source a lot of tools overseas, but we have a certain niche that we still source in Windsor. So they've got a great team there. They deliver a good product. I like Brian. Brian
Yeah, me too.
really understands tooling and machining, and he's built a good team there. So
And you
we
can't get more passionate and enthusiastic than Brian Bendig, right?
Oh, I agree. Yeah, he's great to talk to. So, but the tools we get run well, and that's what I'm after. Is when we get a tool delivered, they run well, and they do it in a good cycle time.
Awesome. All right. So to get started, in case anybody out there is not familiar, why don't you give us a quick snapshot of who Ernie Green Industries is, their
Okay.
size, specialty, differentiator, and then let's get into how you wound up there.
Okay. So Ernie Green is actually Ernie Green is the namesake of our company. So Ernie's still involved in the business. He actually played in the NFL for the Cleveland Browns back in the 60s. But he's been involved in the plastics industry for many years. So he started EG Ernie Green Industries in '81, and it's been tailored towards injection molding. So we now have two different areas that we focus on. The first area is our automotive side. We mold exterior trim parts, wheel covers. We have painted parts, and the size range goes from 250 ton up to 2,500 tons. So there's a big,
Okay.
big, broad
Yeah.
area. We do a lot of under the hood parts, glass filled parts, two-shot parts, technical parts. So a really good array of parts that we do. The other part is our medical side, and we do a lot of non-invasive medical devices for surgery. Yeah, those
Okay.
are typically high-end materials, high tolerance parts. Some of them are higher cavitation tools, so very complex tools. In fact, when I took over the tooling division for EG Industries, I got into the medical. I came from the automotive into the medical, and I told my crew, I'm like, did you guys like intentionally break all the rules that I lived by and put them into one mold? Because we've got some really complex tools, and we do it well. That's the
Interesting.
neat part about it. So they've taught me, I've taught them some things,
Yeah,
and it's been great.
that's awesome. So as operations manager, why don't you give us a little quick day in the life of James Juergens at Ernie Green?
Well, actually, the day in the life of what I do is it's actually I have a cadence I go by. So
Okay.
I have my daily task list that I go through, and it starts with just morning walkthrough, doing sample reviews, making sure that I touch base with each of my managers a couple times a day. Just, hey, what's going on? What can I help you with? I kind of my objective is to try to remove roadblocks from their day and help them become more productive in what they do.
I like that, removing roadblocks. Like you're a godsend at some point, right? That's a great tagline for your job description.
Well, that's what I do is solve problems all day long.
All day long. So you have an extensive background in product development, and injection mold procurement, which I'm sure you've seen challenged and changed this year due to COVID. So let's talk supply chain management. And what were trends prior to COVID, and what have you seen happening since COVID in terms of purchasing tooling and managing the supply chain?
Trends before, we were actually really going really well with outsourcing tooling and then also domestic build. So our team, we've been building up our team and been growing the tooling side of the business. And since COVID hit, it's made things a little bit more challenging. So I've always encouraged our team to go out, visit suppliers. Now we can't visit suppliers. We can't go. We can't go to Canada right now. That is hard. And we do tool trials all the time there. And then we build a lot of tools overseas, and we can't visit. So we like to visit our suppliers and be a part of what they're doing. We tend to get a better product that way.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
It also helps form the relationships with the supplier.
Are you doing any virtual tryouts?
Yeah, well, sometimes somebody will turn on the FaceTime and show what's going on in the tool. We've also had to adapt where we recently had, we have a program that we're some medical parts sending to Illinois for tool trial. Here in New York, we're banned from going to Illinois. So we had to kind of rethink that, and we sent one of the automotive guys to do the tool trial, which worked out really well.
See, there you go. I mean, the COVID, if anything, it's tested the way shops and companies are doing things, and sometimes for the better, right? It's revealing weaknesses or just inefficiencies that maybe you wouldn't have seen otherwise. So there's that silver lining in something that's caused, wreaked havoc to all of us. So any advice for manufacturers who source and manage tools built globally, as we continue to move through the impact of COVID?
One big thing that I really focus on is relationship with the supplier. If they can't trust you and you can't trust them, then you've got some really big challenges. So we tend to make sure that we're upfront and honest with everything we do. We try to over communicate. When possible, we'll have a video conference, but just over communicating, making sure that we're up in front and honest with our suppliers, it goes a long way. With that, we tend to actually get better pricing, better deliveries, because they trust us. They know that we're in this together.
Relationship. And that is the big challenge nowadays. I may even know from the time I've worked in this industry, it's such a community. So, and that's on that personal connection. So that's a big challenge. I mean, you can only do so much virtually, but we got to figure it out. So any tips for that outside of how do you over communicate virtually when everybody's doing that? How do you stand out amidst everything else that's coming at them?
For me, I've tried to teach my team to, when you do a PowerPoint, make sure that it's very clear and concise on what you're communicating, particularly with overseas vendors. We're taking a look at all of our processes and making sure that, because we can't visit, all of our specifications are in order, that all of our standards are in order, so that it gets rid of all the unknowns and questions, because we are doing things virtually.
Yeah. All right. So you were signed up to participate in Emerald 2020, the sourcing fair, and then COVID hit, canceled the event. But you did speak alongside John Flint of Husqvarna during the virtual Emerald Connects event on what Ernie Green was looking for in tooling and molding, vendor expectations and all that kind of stuff. Does that still stand? And do you have more to share, or do you want to reiterate any points from that presentation?
Everything still stands. We're growing. We're growing more in the medical side, and those are the suppliers that we're looking for. So those are going to be typically more domestic suppliers, and I've got a nice list of suppliers that I would like to go visit. But when I finally get off the New York ban list, we'll go visit some of the suppliers.
Let me know if I can help you connect you with anybody. I'm here for that.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. So we worked together recently on a couple articles, and I liked your 6 questions that every purchasing manager should answer to improve their buying skills and create more value for the company. Do you recall? Can you quickly list them right now? I have them in front of me, but do you want to go over them a little bit?
Me too.
Perfect. All right, let's run through those.
All right. So the first one is, what is the function of an injection mold? So when you're buying a product, you should know what you're buying. But with an injection mold, what is an injection mold? It's a piece of steel that cools plastic. And the faster you can cool that plastic, or the more uniform you can control that plastic, the better parts you're going to have. So you may buy a mold from one particular supplier that doesn't, they just care about just throwing some water lines in there and getting you a tool. Well, I don't want that. I'm trying to buy a manufacturing process. So just looking at it a little bit differently. So what if I could shave 5 seconds off of cycle time? Well, that's going to help operations become more productive. So it's looking at it from a holistic viewpoint.
Okay.
So the second one is how many suppliers do you utilize? When I came to EG, we had about 40 tool suppliers on our supplier list, and we cut that back down to about 20. So we've focused on relationships and building those relationships and making sure that I source a fair amount of work with each supplier so that we become important to them. And that's worked out really well. Paying suppliers on time. If you're a good paying customer, you're a good customer, because why is your supplier in business? They want to make money. And if you don't pay them on time, well, it's going to cause some stress in the relationship. The next one is, does your company need extended payment terms? There are, working in automotive, we have PPAP terms on some of our parts, or production terms. We'll get paid for tooling when the tool goes into production. So there's some things that you can do to get extended payment terms through either the Canadian EDC or just creative financing through your bank. The next one is your supplier healthy and going to be around to meet your future needs? I really spend a lot of time making sure that I know my suppliers well, and I watch to make sure that they're financially healthy. I want long-term suppliers. Yeah. And then the last one was, how do you know how to choose the right supplier? I'm an engineer, so I tend to do things methodically. So I put it in what's called a Q matrix, where you have some criteria that you measure your suppliers by. And it's not just price, it's quality, it's delivery, it's the type of equipment and capabilities. So you kind of line it all up and you choose your supplier based upon more than just price and delivery.
I love that. That's a nice little snapshot, right? What we're talking about, being succinct and concise. That's why I love questions, bullet points, lists like that. So thank you for that. Leadership. Leadership is another big topic that this year, and you've mentioned, quote, using a new leadership method to increase efficiency with existing equipment and to grow profits substantially. Can you explain what this new leadership method is?
Yeah, so
it's also a focus of an upcoming article. So I'll mention that.
We ran into a situation here about a year ago where we were getting ready to take on a very large program, and we did the math, and we didn't have enough wire EDM time. And we actually looked at having to buy 2 additional wire EDM machines to be able to do the program. Well, at the time, we were working with a consulting company called Harbor Results, and they were they recommended that we take a look a little deeper. Is there other efficiencies we can gain from our process? Out of that, we ended up finding a feature on our machine that we didn't even know was there. It was called AutoFix. And so we were able to utilize that feature that allowed us to get more runtime, where we didn't have to drop our inserts in the tank or wait and go back later and take those inserts out, because we do really, really small inserts. So now we've got plenty of open capacity for our wire EDM, and we've got really high precision wires. And so the guy who was running those, we were running continually, and now we're running maybe about 30% capacity, and we're doing the same amount of work.
It's crazy. It's all those little, it's like a little find, right? But you're only gonna pick up on that stuff if you're paying attention. And it's and the pace that everybody's at, especially this year, it's just incredible. But that's a great example of getting the whole team to just look at things differently to find efficiencies, right?
That actually that was the start of when we started to look at all aspects of our business. Like, for instance, just moving our benches for our tool makers. We put them close to where they're actually working and got rid of them walking around the plant. We went back and did a spaghetti diagram to see, well, how much savings did we really get from that? Well, we were able to add about $71,000 of more throughput and
Wow.
capacity in our facility just by moving the benches so they didn't have to walk
Right.
across the shop all day long.
Yeah, it's
Um,
incredible.
yeah,
It is incredible. I mean, and that's a lesson people can put into their own personal lives too, James, right? You got to look
yeah,
at the little things, they matter.
yeah.
All right. So last but not least, I want to ask, since again, we're still dealing with COVID, how
hmm
do you see mold making specifically emerging from this? I mean, every shop, well, I've been trying to stay positive during this year, focusing on good stories and kind of what you're saying, all the things that the shops are discovering about their people, about their training, about their processes, and they're learning a lot and they're accomplishing things
hmm
that they never knew they were able to accomplish in record
Yeah.
times, right? And they're buying equipment, they're investing. It's been interesting. But so with that being said, like I'm so curious to see what's going to happen with the industry and how they're going to work. What's the business and the process going to be like for mold making coming out of this?
We're going to have to rethink how we actually are structuring our business and being open to new ideas, like having our mold designers work from home. That's
Yeah,
an option. Making sure that our business systems are such that can handle guys working remotely. Um, it's utilizing software programs like Teams to be able to create a community type environment for building tools. It's right now with the way things are, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world. Well, capital investment's kind of iffy at this point. So
yeah,
again, that's why we're focusing on what can we do to drive more efficiency on the floor with what we have, and then we'll be prepared that when we do come out of COVID and capital spending opens up, that we can begin to go forward and be able to appropriately utilize the equipment that we buy.
yeah,
If we go out and we buy equipment and we're at the same efficiency that we are now, well, we're not going to truly get the savings out of it that we really need to get for our
exactly.
shareholders.
Exactly. Well, that about does it. I want to thank you for all of your time, James. I think it was a great insights on a variety of topics,
Yeah,
and pretty quickly. I think we did it. So I want to thank you for your
thank
time
you.
again. And to everyone watching, remember for everything mold making, visit moldmakingtechnology.com. Stay safe and healthy, and more importantly, stay informed and stay inspired.